Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome back from lunch. I hope you have enjoyed your morning sessions and had a time to kind of get a little bit of rest and get some food. We're just grateful just to continue to be part of this conference. My name is Steve Bergem. My wife, Vicky, she'll be coming up here in a second. And so and we're going to have three other speakers. We have Dave and Deb Eskew and Matthew Bridges. So there are such an incredible group of people that just have great hearts just to really be reaching out and to really share and to teach. And so, again, I just want to say welcome to our parenting a child with special needs. We appreciate the time you guys are here in Orlando. And for those that are online, we appreciate the time for you guys just to really get online with us as well. And so we have an Exceptional Families Facebook page here, as you can see. So if you need to reach out to us, we encourage you guys highly just to reach out through our Facebook groups page, and then be a part of our group, be a part of the families that are already on there, and just really start interacting, and you'll just be able to see just a camaraderie of people, families, just being able to just share and talk, and just be able to really learn from each other as well. And then, so I wanted to say, at this point, I'm just going to open this up in a order of prayer, and then we'll just be able to continue to share just a little bit more as we continue through here this afternoon. Father, I want to say thank you so much for this time. God, it's amazing to think that you would just allow us just to be able to breathe just a little bit, to come together and just be a part of a fellowship that just really pours itself out, just knowing that, God, that you give it all to us, God. Thank you so much for allowing us just to serve, to be loved, and God, for allowing us just to really be just encouraged and blessed in so many ways, God. Allow us just to really take this time to share just a little bit of who we are and just what our families are, and how our families are blessed by you, God. It just doesn't matter what the situations are or what our family makeup is, but God, that you're with us and you continue to show that you're with us. God, I just pray so much that you just should really continue just to really pour out your blessings to all of those families here at this conference, God. Thanks so much for this time. And so in Jesus' name, amen. So here, again, my name's Steve, and this here in this picture, so we had taken a little spring break trip earlier this year, and this is one of the pictures we've taken here. So in the middle are my two lovely children, Toby. He will be 13 tomorrow, actually. So we had an awesome time to go out and celebrate his birthday a little bit early yesterday, out on one of the amusement parks. And then we have Tabitha. She's 16, but I already think she's 30 years old, right? Vicky and I were so incredibly blessed. We have such an incredible, these children just are really amazing, but we're a neurodivergent family, right? So we're impacted by ADHD, autism, learning challenges, panic attacks, anxieties, and then I think I can probably add 20 other things to that list, right? And so I'm sure as many of you will be able to really be familiar with that as well. And our kids, but they're just incredible though. Just like any other kid, you actually take the time just to really interact with them. You'll see that they're kind, they're loving, and also just incredibly how talented they are. It's just a matter of being able to bring that out in them, allowing them to have that moment and opportunity just to shine in that way, just in our interactions with them. But the thing that Vicky and I realize is that it's always about God's all-knowing purpose, right? Like He already knew exactly what He's formed in every single one of us, and He already knew exactly how our kids are really how they're born and and how they're just all the little things about them that makes them who they are. God already knows all of that. But for Vicky and I, we're just really learning to figure out some of those things that God already knows, right? It's just a matter of really paying attention to what God has already placed before us, But at the same time, we realize that God's taking care of our family in such an incredible way because, He's taking to help us in things that Vicky and I don't understand, especially in the beginning where we're finally realizing there's something different going on here in our family, And Vicky and I were just thinking, is it our parenting? What are we doing with our children that's not working? Why is it not working? We're we're going back to the scriptures. We're going back to our elders. We're going back to many other married parents that have, just that are way above us, farther along in their life with their children. And so we reached out to so many different sets of couples. And so I feel like we've been very fortunate because we've already been able to have such an incredible network of families, of parents across not just San Diego, but across the U.S. as well as some parts of the world as well. So, and we've been fortunate that that's the kingdom. The love in the kingdom is just that great, right? That we're able to find a network and find those resources. And then so so what little treasure that we found in the kingdom like that, Vicky and we always look at each other and say we need to make sure other families in our situation needs to find this resource, needs to be tapped into this community, right? Because I think sometimes we get into our own little, we're on our own little islands, and we don't realize there's so many little other islands all around us, right? That someone needs to help lift that fog away so that we can see each other and be able to have that dialogue, be able to connect. And so I think God does a great job of helping us to bring that together. And so, and that's what today's about, right? So this hour is going to go really fast, especially when you have this many great speakers and the things they have to share. And so I don't want to take up too much more of your time here. But at the same time here, because this hour is so short, after this 2:15, we're going to have a breakout sessions in rooms 320A, B, C, and D. And we're going to have facilitators in each of those areas pertaining to different areas of what our groups are going to be broken down to. So we want to encourage you guys to come into our breakout sessions and be able to ask your questions, be able to share some of your stories, and be able to really, just be a part of that community already with us. If you haven't already felt like you're part of any type of that kind of community, we want you to be a part of God's community in that way, right? And so, because, when you look at our family, people will say, well, people would consider that to be a normal family, right? When you look at all the physical appearances, when all the things that we normally do on a day-to-day basis, it looks quite normal. But for us to get to that stage, so there's a lot of things we got to work through that's not so normal in a lot of our day-to-day lives, And so it's really amazing just to think that we have a lot we need to work through, and that God helps us in every step of the way, right? If we don't realize that, then I have to recheck my heart every time, right? But I realize God helps us. If you want to call it a journey, if you want to call, your chapter in your life, it doesn't matter. It's just like the thing we got to realize is God helps us, and wherever we are in our life at that moment, with each other, with ourselves, and with our families. And so for us, we come to realize that's what it's taken, right? And also we realize we have the community of people that God's placed and all around us to help us to just with those day-to-day walk as well. And so one of the things, because this class is so short, or this time is so short, there's so many things that we feel like we want to touch on as far as, being a family of special needs, right? And especially in parenting, right? So Vicky and I, we went back and forth, and we kind of landed on patience. And you're probably thinking like, well, yeah, but we already are working on that. We already know about patience, right? But we come to realize this is kind of like one of the building blocks of good parenting, right? So even more so when you're a parent of a special needs child, right? And so these are some of the things we want to really look at a little bit more closely. And so just bear with us as we go through some of these things. And then, like I said, this is one point we want to cover, right? But maybe, outside of this time in the Q&A or offline, we'll be able to discuss so many other points and just really be able to go deeper into our discussions of what it is to really truly parent a special needs child. Because, we got to start somewhere, and sometimes some of those things, we got to make sure they're solid, they're strong, right? So we look at, all we need to be is more patient, and we want to think our challenge. We want to challenge in our thinking about what we do as parents. Oops, let me go back here. And then also, too, we want to be, how do we become more patient, right? We look at it as like, because I think for the most part, when most people come and talk with my wife and I, people are probably that's one of the first things they say is like, we're very patient as individuals, as couples, right? But then we're like, well, now I have to go talk to my children, and then you might not have the same definition of patience, right? So when you bring in the element of children, and then when you bring in the element of a child with special needs, then you're redefining where you are as a patient person, right? And so we need help with that. So because being a parent, being patient is really integral in parenting a child with disabilities, and also because we say that that it's integral in the time you need to bond with your child, right? So patience is such a strong element of who you are as a parent that's going to help you to really truly bond with your child. Because some of us realize kids need more support. Kids don't have it because some kids, or maybe they're not able to act independently on their own, right? So we have to help them really get dressed or making decisions. So you know what? In our house, it takes much longer to get out of the house, So something that we might normally typically do that can get out of the house within 10, 15 minutes, it might be an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And sometimes we barely make the end of an appointment, okay? So it's all these little things that we need to help, that's going to help us in our patience, right? So it's really, truly amazing to think that with patience, we can really discover so much of what we can do as a parent, as long as we keep that in mind here. And then I'm going to have Vicky come up and just really share a lot of things that we've been able to really grow in here.
Awesome. Thank you, honey. What's amazing is patience is actually a skill. So even if we're not feeling patient, and like Steve shared, people have considered us patient people through the years. And when you feel like you're patient and then all of a sudden your life gets turned upside down and you realize, I'm really not that patient anymore. So as a skill, we can grow in that. We can develop the skills of patience, and over time, it can become much easier. So in 1 Timothy 1:6, it says, "But this is why I was shown mercy, so that Christ Jesus could show his endless patience to me first of all." When I look through my life, my stubbornness, my character, how I need time to process things when people tell me things, I need patience. God has shown me as an individual, as a person, as a daughter, as a child, incredible patience. And that propels me to want to be more patient, to be more like Jesus, because that's really what it's all about, right? We want to be like Jesus. We're disciples, and we want to bring that into our parenting. Jesus is our example. God allows us to go through experiences, make our own choices, and learn from them. Think about some of the people, and you probably will think of different ones than what I think of, in the Bible where Jesus showed patience. Peter, the woman at the well. The list will just go on and on and on. We can grasp patience, but it's not easy, right? How many people have blown it? Is there a hand that is not going to raise because they've not been patient at some time, right? It's a topic that we can all relate to. Like Steve shared, it takes longer to get out the house. I was never late before I became a parent. I don't like being late. I'm late now, right? Even with 2 hours, 3 hours of prep time sometimes, because I don't control, as much as I would like to think I can, everybody in my house. Everybody has their own flow, and we have to work with them, and it takes a lot of patience, more so than the average child. We've all got different challenges in our life that can crop up the instant we're all ready to walk out that door. Something happens. We were early this morning to get here, but we could have been late. I left my water bottle in the room, and then we had to find water because I'm a cougher. I don't have COVID, but I'm naturally somebody who coughs a lot with allergies. So I don't like going places without water. But our kids can be the same way. There are little things that they have to have or they have to do right before we leave the house. So as soon as you think you're good at something or somebody lets you know, hey, you're patient, you're this, God is pretty fast to show you, no, there's still room for growth in this area. So there was a point in time when we were just diagnosing our youngest that our family went through a tremendously difficult period of time. And it became harder and harder to be patient. We had to work through the grief, right? When we first get the diagnosis that our children are a little bit different, their lives are not going to shape out the way we thought they would, the way we would expect them to, we grieve. And that grief can last a very long time. And then there's the challenging behaviors, right? Like my husband said, ADHD, autism. It was great to hear Darren and Sharon talk this morning in the main parenting session. They've been incredible support to us through the years. But it comes with behavior challenges. We have to be patient, right? We don't feel patient. It tests us. Miscommunication, right? Between us, between our kids, between people around us, right? There's miscommunication all over the place. The feeling judged, the not trusting God. It's tempting. We have to be patient. All of those things tested us in our family, and I'm pretty sure most of you can relate to a lot of that. We feel that unspoken pressure to be and do things a certain way, and then we don't always measure up. As Darren shared, or Sharon, I think it was shared this morning, there's a lot of well-meaning advice. People want to help. They want to support. But it doesn't always help, right? We have to be patient. I wasn't always good at that, right? We can get snappy or short or defensive, but we need to be patient. Can you relate? I see some heads nodding, right? I questioned, I went to school to become a nanny, a professional nanny. I took parenting, psychology, basic nursing, all of these great things. I worked in a lot of different environments with kids. I questioned everything I knew about parenting because it wasn't working. And I really had to surrender my way of doing things and be okay with it being different, with it looking different, with doing it different. I had to really let go and trust God. I had to hold on to the scriptures. They're what we want, right? We want to do it that way. But sometimes doing it looks a little bit differently. The end goal is the same, but the path, the journey to get there is different. If we know what makes it hard for us to be patient, then we can figure out how to be patient, right? If we can cue in, if we can become aware of those areas. So think through, just for yourself, right, what makes it hard for you to be patient? It's human nature for us to focus on the negative. We're genetically wired to notice the negative because that's what helps keep us safe. But if we're not careful, we can spend a lot of time focused on how we've messed up, and we can forget to focus on what helps us to be patient. So we can do it differently next time. God's character, right? He's patient. He's loving. He's kind. He's selfless. He's wise. He's gentle. Can go on and on and on about how amazing his character is. In the 90s, there was this phrase, what would Jesus do? WWJD, right? You familiar with that one? I still use that, even more so now in my parenting, because challenging situations still arise. What would Jesus do? What would he do in this moment? I'm not feeling patient. I'm feeling angst. I'm feeling triggered. I'm feeling like, can you just not get everything together so we can do this, right? What would Jesus do? That little clip this morning of Jesus interacting on The Chosen, with the kids. He was calm. He was patient. He took them along. He meets us where we're at. Are we doing that with our kids? Am I doing that? That's what Jesus would do. Which of his characteristics stand out to you? So during the leadership conference, the main theme seemed to be Colossians 3:12, right? We are chosen as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, So we can clothe ourselves with compassion, kindness, and humility, gentleness, and patience. You know, we remember what's said in the beginning and at the end more than anything else. What is at the end here? Patience, right? God wants us to remember to be patient. Paul urges us to take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. That's the only way I can be patient. I have a running dialogue in my mind of so many different things that I tell myself, and it's either going to drive me to being patient, or it's going to make it even more difficult and trigger me even more and trigger my kids. So what am I going to do, right? It's not easy, but God knew. You know, even before we figured out all the brain science, you know, the scientists have dug in there and they figured all this stuff out. God knew, right? When we're triggered, and this is the brain science, the thinking part of our brain goes offline. We can't access it. We're not in our right mind. It's been hijacked, right? The amygdala, the lower part of our brain, which is responsible for that fight, flight, freeze, and I like to say fib response, you know, because especially with our kids, that can be one of their little responses, and even in us, to ourselves, you know. The only way we can get that back online is by breathing. Breathing. So if we can become aware of when we're not being patient, and if we can take that pause and breathe, we can choose patience. But we have to know what those things are that trigger us. We need that oxygen in our brain to calm our nervous system, to deactivate the amygdala, to turn on that thinking part of our brain again, so we can process and start making those decisions that Jesus would want us to make, so we can be like him. It takes understanding the diagnosis. You know, when we understand something, we're naturally more patient, right? It helps us. Reading the books, talking to other parents, knowing we're not alone helps. No matter, we're all in here for different reasons. You know, you may have children with ADHD, you may have children with autism, you may be able to relate to what we go through as a family. You may not. You may have other circumstances in your life. Your children may have other challenges. But finding those people that can connect, that can relate, that understand is so important. Praying, people to pray with who really, really get it, who understand that grief when your child is diagnosed, understand that journey, and going through life together, community, so important to us. In Romans 15:1, scriptures and mantra, I cannot live without them. You know, what scriptures do you have in your pockets that are going to help you depend on God to be patient, right? For we who are powerful need to be patient with the weakness of those who don't have the power and not please ourselves. Sometimes our kids cannot help what they're going through, what the situations are around them. We have to be patient in their weakness, right? What are the mantras? What are the scriptures that you're holding on to? This one really helped me. Children do well if they can. I don't know if you're familiar with Ross Greene. He's one of my favorites. They do well if they can. They don't wake up in the morning think, I'm going to make mom and dad's day really tough today. Let's give mom and dad a hard time today. That's not who they are. They do well if they can. If they're having a hard time, what is happening? Behavior is a communication, right? If my son's melting down, what's going on? What is he thinking? What's happening for him? Where can I support him? How can I help him? You know, in that moment, he was triggered. He didn't have access to the words, and it's coming out through his behavior. What is going on? And again, think through the Bible. It's full of examples. Lying, Peter. Avoiding, the woman at the well. She went at a time nobody else was going to be there. Being accusatory, the Pharisees, right, when they caught the woman in adultery. Doubting Thomas. We all know that one. Not getting their own way. Paul and Silas. What happened there? Right? Breaking the rules. Well, Jesus himself did that. He broke some rules. He stood out. Speaking unkindly. The crowds about Jesus. Not everybody spoke nicely about him. Being mean in the Sanhedrin. Being unfair, the tax collectors. Betrayal, Judas. Jealousy, the prodigal son's brother. Tired and not following directions. The disciples falling asleep when Jesus asked them to pray, right? There are so many examples of Jesus being patient with different people. What are the places we need to be patient with our kids? I'm going to let Steve finish up.
Right, so here in 2 Timothy, we preach the word, be ready to do whether it is convenient or inconvenient, correct, confront, and encourage with patience and instruction, right? So we preach to our children through our actions, right? So we don't always necessarily have to give lots of words to our children. In fact, my children, I have to use fewer words with them, and I have to interact with them more and less with my words. And we know that our kids are more likely to imitate what we do rather than obviously what we say. Because my kids are very observant. They always watch what mom and dad does, and sometimes they'll come back with us and ask questions about why we do some of the things we do, right? But my children, they learn so much by how we act, how we live, and not necessarily so much of the things we say to them. In fact, a lot of times they try to turn off what they're hearing from us because they say, "Mom, that's too much, right? You're telling me too much, right?" So it's not always convenient to stop and be patient, but God calls us to be patient as we teach, train, and encourage our children. So that's just something I just want to remind us, just that our kids need that time to process, right? So children say no, and then they go off, and then but sometimes like our children, we tell them no one time, or we actually them to do something, and they might say no to us one time, and then it's because they got to take the time to really process what you're asking them to do, right? So sometimes it's taking us multiple times to ask our son to do something before he not that he needs to comply, but before he might even agree to something, right? And not acknowledging it, right? Because a lot of times the first response is no. A lot of times there's no response, and so it's just a matter of allowing the child to process what they're actually hearing and taking in. And that works on my patience because I want an immediate response, and that doesn't always happen, right? So just those are the things we want to think about. So what's our thoughts? 3 thoughts here. The goal, is just kind of is to help, right? We're all on the same goal here, is to help our children to love God with all their heart, right? And it is to be okay and to be different, to be okay with that and do things that might not necessarily be what we normally have grown up to be or knowing, right? And it takes more patience, right, and understanding with our children. So what? If anything, patience, and try to be really so much more understanding of where our children are coming from, of what they're hearing, or what they're learning, and then becoming aware of where and when it's hard to be patient for yourself, because sometimes we got to take a step back a little bit and think about how patient am I? Because you might think you're being really, really patient, but at the same time, are you fuming inside? Because outwardly you're showing patience, but inside you're kind of like really like fighting it within yourself and really getting angry within yourself, and that's not being patient, right? So we want to be able to do that, right? And be able to generally show that to be patient here. So at this time, I'm going to have Matthew come up.
Good afternoon. All right. My name is Matthew Bridges, and I'm very honored to share with you today on the topic of parenting children with special needs. And just a little bit about me. I'm a behavior consultant, advanced certified autism specialist, And I run a camp, have a camp called Camp Marcel. It's named after our grandson that had autism. And we ran the camp for about 20 years. It's Bridging Lives, part of our services, Bridging Lives, Social Skills and Recreation. And he passed away at 9.5 years, about 6.5 years ago. So we named the camp after him. Now it's Camp Marcel. So at Camp Marcel, what we do is we provide social skills and recreation trainings throughout the summer for individuals with different and multiple disabilities. We provide weekend respite services to where the children will come. Typically on our schedules are mainly on Friday afternoon at 6 until Sunday at 10. So the parents will be able to bring their child there and leave them there and just get to have life and come back and pick them up. So that's something that we do. And what does life look like with a special needs child? Just as no two children are the same, there is no blanket answer to answer this question. A child challenge may come in the form of medical, developmental, behavior, or mental health issues. Each of these scenarios present various concerns for the child's parents. Am I doing enough? Will my child be okay? Why is this happening? The uncertainty and the struggles can lead to feeling of loneliness, despair, bitterness, anxiety, grief, and hopelessness. When we acknowledge our feelings and surrender them to God, we find hope and encouragement. We may wonder, where is God? And what he has to say about parenting our special needs child. Turning to God's word shows the answers. In Matthew 14, verse 15 through 18, it says, as evening approached, the disciples came to Jesus and said, this is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowd away so they can go to the village and buy themselves something to eat. Jesus replied, they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. We have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, the answers. Bring them to me, he said. You know, Jesus set the example of advocating for people. Regardless how challenging the needs were to the apostles, he made sure every person's needs were met. He did not send them away. He did not avoid the challenge. He made superior use of what they had. And that's what we have to do. We have to recognize what we have. We build on strengths, not weaknesses. Be an advocate. Proverbs 31, 8, 9. Okay, yeah. Proverbs 31, 8 through 9. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Defend the right of the poor and the needy. We must be the voice. There is no question. We must be the voice. In a world where your child may be misunderstood or not receive the best medical support, educational support, behavior support, or inclusion support because of ignorance, a lack of care and concern, we must advocate for them. Sometimes this means calmly or sternly explaining our child's behavior to a daycare worker, a teacher, a bus driver, Kingdom Kids volunteer, etc. Sometimes it means getting second and third opinions from a medical professional. When the answers are hard to find or don't seem right, don't give up. Keep searching, asking questions, and seeking the best for your child. You must remember, you're not alone, and God is your advocate, fighting beside you and leading the way for the best future for your child. God does not make mistakes. He knew exactly who your child would be. God also knows who you are and exactly what you are capable of doing with him leading the way. Educationally, once you understand your child's diagnosis, as Vicky shared, you must begin to seek clarity and knowledge of the educational programs, available to enhance your child's abilities. This can be very challenging, working with the school system or other programs. It requires time up front, reading, asking questions, meeting with program directors, etc. But you want to know what's available. Inclusion. You want to advocate and make sure your child is included in all things that will help them grow and develop in all areas as long as it is safe and productive. With school, church, social activities, provide as much inclusive exposure as you are comfortable with. Do not shrink back because of their disability. Understand their weaknesses and develop the support you will need to make it an enjoyable and productive time for your child. Games, movies, restaurants, etc. At Camp Marcel, we'll teach a child how to sit and watch a movie. We'll teach a child how to play with another child. We'll have a child to come in the first day that does not play with other children. First thing we'll do is have them to play tic-tac-toe. They have a game that all you got to do is touch it and push it, and it'll roll over, and it'll be an O, R, and X. And so whether they have the fine motor or the occupational skills to do it, we do a hand over hand, and we touch that, and it turns over. We get the other child to touch it, or we touch it. Typically, the adult will start with the child, and then we'll do it, and then we'll bring another child in, and the adult will fade out. So for a child that had never played, within an hour, they're playing with another child. You know, and it's only God, it's not us. Legal rights. It is essential that you know your child's legal rights as a child with a disability, especially when it comes to school programs, social services provided by the federal, state, and county agencies. Attend as many free workshops and trainings as you can. Training put on by the school districts, anything that they have that they're going to do as far as trainings, take advantage of it. You know, have your teacher to send you information. You know, when is this happening? What's that's happening? We need to know this. Specify the areas that you have concerns in. Thoroughly understand the Individuals with Disability Education Act. It's called IDEA, IDEA 2004. It's a law that makes available a free, appropriate public education to eligible children with disabilities. And the word appropriate is the key word. Because a lot of times your kids will be stuck in a program that's not doing anything for them. It's not helping them grow. It's not helping you at home. It's not helping them with their siblings. It's not doing anything for them. Developing a team of support, community expertise. Let's see, did I skip one? Yeah. In Mark 10:13-14, it says, people were bringing little children to Jesus to have him touch them, but the disciples refused them. When Jesus saw this, he was indignant. He said to them, let the children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. The parent brought the children to the expert. They brought them to the expert healer, the Savior of all. They knew he had everything they and their children needed. And when Jesus saw this, as the apostles withholding them from coming to him, he was indignant. Jesus became upset when he saw the children were being hindered for getting his touch and care. A parent should always seek to put their child in a position to get the best support they can. And that's tough sometimes, just trying to live life and living with other people's schedule and different things like this. It's the only time that we can have this meeting at this time. And it just may be, you just got a job, whatever. It's almost impossible for you to get there, but we must do the best that we can, you know. And the thing about it is a lot of experts really want to help. They really do, and that's why they're in their field. Jesus did not want the apostles to hinder the children. The apostles misunderstood Jesus' compassion. God wants your child's needs to be met. That's Jesus' compassion. He wants your child needs to be met. And James 4, verse 10, it says, humble yourself in the presence of the Lord, as he will lift you up. You must ask for available resources, related services, social skills and recreation, generalization across all environments. Related services. Once you understand the diagnosis and what comes with some of the diagnosis and the things that we need, I put on here OT, that's occupational therapy, PT is physical therapy, SLP is speech and language pathologist, IHPT is an in-home parent trainer, which is something that I do. I've done that for probably about 25 years, as far as going into the home and working with the parent one-on-one and helping them teach their child from things like feeding themselves, how to use a utensil, toilet training, morning routine, how to ride the bus. I've ridden the bus with many kids, you know what I'm saying? I think that these are the things that we have to go out and we have to request, because one, it's going to give you an opportunity to allow your child to be as independent as they possibly can. Generalization across all environments. When you're being taught something, a lot of people, know, and ABA is a therapy that's out there, especially for a lot of individuals that's on the spectrum. And you want that generalized. You just don't want it to be in a clinical setting or in a school setting. You want that to be generalized, something that you can use when you are out in the community, at the grocery store, coming to church, watching a movie, going to the mall, all of these type things. So some of these resources are available. Parenting at different levels looks entirely different. You got early childhood, you got kindergarten, you got elementary, you got junior high, you got high school, etc. And you got children with different disabilities. So it's no one cup fit all. Parenting a child with a severe and profound disability that's not ambulatory, nonverbal, sensory integration, delayed toilet training, all of these things are real. They're very real, and it requires a lot of you, a whole lot of you. And it's something that, talking to health professionals or educational professionals or different things like that, some of the things sometimes they not want to get their hands dirty. They're just going to tell you some things to do. But you must know what their jobs are. Their job is to help you and to teach you and help build these different things, and we have to go for it. Physically and verbally aggressive toward parents, toward their siblings, toward the school staff and peers, intellectually disabled, attention-seeking, medical fragile, TBI, traumatic brain injury, just different things, that it looks a lot different, and each category requires a certain skill level. And you as a parent, you end up having to do your best to acquire all those different skills. Some people are just, I work with a lot of parents that just don't have the temperament to be the behavior person. You know what I'm saying? That's going to say no or going to do this. And sometimes, you parent, you switches off, you do whatever you can do. You know what I'm saying, to make that happen. But the physical aggression can be tough. Work with a lot of kids that fight their parents, that break windows out in the house, that throw all the stuff out of the refrigerator. This is not negative, but this is real. This is actually what happens. You know what I'm saying? It comes from some of the diagnoses that we have, and it's nothing that you should ever feel shame about or feel that you are not doing a great parenting job. You know what I'm saying? And we together can work through ways that we can do things that will help everybody get through it. Dealing with your personal hurts and pains because you honestly do not know what to do. That happens. You do not have any time for yourself. Unable to spend time with your other children. Cannot put nice things out because of fear of them getting broken or used as a weapon. I've been there, I've seen it. Marital struggles that can occur. Must seek help, cannot allow pride to get in the way. So we have to we really need to get some help. God did not create us to journey through this life alone. When we are going through any kind of trials, we shouldn't hesitate to accept the love and support of extended family, friends, church members, and co-workers. It is not a sign of weakness to accept offers to babysit, help with housework, go to the grocery store, companions for a long and anxious doctor's appointment. I used to drive from Houston, Texas to Dallas, which is about 4 hours, for my grandson to go to the dentist. Why his mother there? Because he would not sit in a dentist's office. His sensory integration and his desire to move around, his ADHD along with his autism, he would not sit. So I bought a wagon. She would go, and she would sit in the waiting room, and I would take this wagon and put him in it, and we had to sit there for an hour. I rode him up and down the sidewalk for an hour. And she called me and said, he can come in now. Then I'd come back, and he'd get his doctor's appointment. So this is the type things that you couldn't tell anybody that. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to get it, right? You know, but we have to support one another. Sometimes parents are afraid to open up to others because of the struggle of the day-to-day parenting journey with a special needs child, because they don't think anyone would understand. Get some respite services, please. All others to support your efforts, ask for and accept help, allow your child the opportunity to grow and mature. And that's serious. We need to give them an opportunity to learn how to make some good decisions. You have the right to stand up for your child. God is on your side. And be comfortable with knowing and trusting that he will deliver. God give us the answers. Jesus advocates for us. Parents must speak for their children's. Be included, not in the back room. That's all over. Take care of yourself, please. Enjoy growing with your child. Thank you for this time and your kindness. Let's see, it may be, I think I have some references. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you. Thank you so much to the Bergems and Matthew. That was amazing stuff. We are Dave and Deb Eskew. We're from Northern Virginia. We've been there for about 3 years. And here's our family. So a little bit about Deb and I quickly. You'll meet the rest of the family here in a minute. We're Midwest kids. We were baptized as freshmen in the Chicago church in the late 80s. It's the 1980s, not the 1880s, where you get accused of being kind of old. We were married in 1991, actually on graduation day. I was in the singles ministry for 5 hours between those two events. We then moved out to LA. We were in the full-time ministry for a couple minutes, and then we embarked on our careers after that. I'm in IT project management. Deb was in software. She'll talk about that. And then later on started working for the church in event planning, administration, and helping with the preschool we had there in Orange County. We have 2 daughters. You see them up there on the screen, Haley and Sydney. Both were baptized as they entered high school, and then enjoyed great campus ministries at Georgia Tech and UCLA. I see a couple Bruins over there. I served on the LA Church Board of Directors for about a decade, and then as an elder in the Orange County Church for around 8 years or so. We led the youth and family ministry in Orange County, just one of the greatest kind of chapters in our life there. We did then move to the Northern Virginia Church about 3 years ago to be closer to our family and extended family. Both of our girls are now married, and so what you see there was about 3 weeks ago. Sydney, our youngest, got married to Edison Relay, a great brother in the church there. And then you see Haley and Jacob Tevis, her husband. They got married a couple years ago. So that is our growing family. Haley serves in the Yo Pro ministry there in Nova. Sydney serves in the teen ministry.
And we are here because we have a special needs daughter with physical needs. And so Sydney was born with cystic fibrosis. And it was so difficult to diagnose, so she went through a lot, and there was the spinal taps and all the tests and everything, and she was still birth weight at 5 months. And so obviously we kept going, trying to figure out what it is. Cystic fibrosis, when we got the diagnosis, the doctor goes, "You're taking this really well." I'm like, "I don't know what that is." So he goes, "Well, that explains." So it is a non-curable disease. has two impacts. One is her body doesn't digest fat or protein, so she takes medication every day to help her digest things. And the fatal part is her lungs. Her lungs are coated in a mucus lining, and so they don't expand and contract appropriately. And so she has breathing treatments that she does every day. And and she is very susceptible to having her lungs collapsed. At one point, the two sides of her lungs grew together, and her lung actually collapsed. And so when she was diagnosed, we were told we would have her till probably teenage years. And so kind of, changes your life as you start thinking through those things. I ended up leaving my career and ended up being more of a full-time stay-at-home caregiver, amateur nurse. For any of you, as you're getting diagnosis, you learn more about things and that you would have never even heard as real words, and you're like, I know what that is now. And so she spends a couple hours every day doing treatments, like around 25 pills a day, just to maintain her health. She was hospitalized a lot through the first few years of her life, well, all the way till she was probably 24. That's like when she started doing a little bit better. But but she's had a lot of procedures. I spent a lot of time at the hospital, and she was so delayed. We were able to get free physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and everything for years. And so, just really grateful for kind of where things are at now. But it's always going to be an issue.
So we've heard a lot of great stuff today, right? We've talked about patience. We've talked about perseverance. We're going to give you one more word to consider, and that's perspective. One of my favorite scriptures here in 2 Corinthians 4:16, it says, "Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." And so for just a couple minutes, we're going to talk about perspective, and really from two different vantage points, right? First, I'm going to share for a minute or two about what perspective we need to have as parents, and then Deb's going to share about how as parents we can help our kids have the right perspective. That said, before we get any further into it, just kind of a public service announcement. We are far from perfect parents. We have made so many mistakes, and it is only through God's just infinite grace and patience and mercy and kindness that anything good turned out with our kids. And we've gotten so much help, and we'll talk about that in a minute. In my nature, I am fearful. I am anxious, and then that leads me to being controlling and micromanaging and just a whole series of stuff, right, that's not any good. And unfortunately, that mess just manifests itself in my life in a bunch of ways, but also very specifically as it relates to Sid and her health and parenting and all the things that go along with it. When she was first diagnosed, and honestly, at times even still, one of the things I do as a defense mechanism is I will try to minimize sometimes how severe it is. And I do that right as a defense mechanism because it hurts so much to just fully embrace it and lean into it and understand it. And so I try to she'll be fine, or it's okay, or look how well she's doing, or this or that. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to prevent hurting, right? And then that creates challenges here, right? Because then Deb feels like I'm aloof or I'm uncaring, that I'm not connecting to what she's feeling. And so to help me with all that is really trying to have an eternal perspective. And over the years, it's definitely been one of the things that have helped me. I'm still a huge mess and work in progress in a lot of ways. But having an eternal perspective, right? Trying to filter my thoughts and my feelings and my words and emotions and actions through an eternal lens has helped a ton. I had to realize that when Sydney was young, she might not live very long. And so my goal was then, like David, right, to be faithful so that I could spend an eternity with her, because I might not have her for very long here. And obviously she's grown older and she became a Christian. Now my goal, right, was to train and teach and help her so that we could both make it to heaven together, so that we could have eternity that way. And so while this isn't a maybe a practical parenting class per se. I mean, we focused, as I know all of you do, all of our energies on trying to create a space, an environment for the kids growing up where they fell in love with God. They fell in love with God's word. They fell in love with God's church. And again, trying to focus on the eternal. And so how did I do that right? Or how do I try to do that? I mean, it's the simple stuff, right? It's the simple but hard things, right? Just tons of Bible study about heaven. Tons of Bible study about eternity. Randy Alcorn's book on heaven is so good. I read that every 2 or 3 years. And I'm sure, hopefully, you've got your own favorite books on heaven and eternity. Countless hours just wrestling with God, right? Like, not just kind of the pious routine platitudes that I can get into sometime, but angry prayers, right? Where I'm just kind of having it out with God and him bringing me back to a place that maybe it's hard right now, but in light of eternity, this is just a blip. It's a momentary and light trouble. Tons of discipling, right? Getting with men, getting with other couples that could help us process stuff, that could help us think through things, that could remind us of eternity, that would help us get a better perspective when we got so far in the weeds, right? So far into, we've been at the hospital now for 2 weeks, just life, right? When it starts to steamroll you, having someone help us lift our eyes a little bit. And it's just so grateful for that help and accountability. And it's something, right, that just never ends, right? Like, now we're in a new stage. I've never been the parent of a daughter with cystic fibrosis who is now married to somebody. And he actually has his own physical challenges and health needs, right? So we're in a brand new place. And so it's constantly learning. But more than anything, right, God's been gracious, God's been perfect, God's been patient, and God's been merciful. Deb's going to share a little bit more.
I'm going to read Sydney's favorite scripture, which is Romans 8:18. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing. As I'm looking through these pictures and the different things of Sid, it just reminds me of so much pain. You'd think, good gravy, she's 25, you're not done with that. You will never be done, suffering with your kids. And so being able to say it's not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. And this is something we work so hard to help the kids to think through future and to be able to think through what it's going to be like. We did not hide anything from our kids about their health, especially with Sid. She knew all along that she might not make it, for very long. And so I'm going to read some of her words that she wrote, and we've saved this board that she wrote this on. It says, cystic fibrosis is very hard on me. It makes it hard for me to do physical activities because of it. My family is very supportive of me, and it's hard. I wouldn't imagine a different life. God made me very special, and I am blessed. I love my life and God. And just being able to understand the impact we have on what our kids see and what they feel. And so, being able to really think through how she feels and what she didn't get to experience some of the things other kids got to do. She couldn't go to sleepovers, even at a girlfriend's house. Her body, she had treatments she had to do every day. She had too many things she couldn't do physically what some of the other kids could do. And so she would get sick, she would stay up late. So around 8, I would say, she was sitting in the back of the van, and I was driving, and she goes, you know what, Mommy, I think I figured it out. I think when I die, you're just going to be jealous. And I'm like, what? She goes, because I get to see God before you do. And so there were just different things that her little mind wasn't afraid of that. She was just like, I get to see him first, and you're just going to be jealous. It just breaks my heart to even think like that, but that she thought those things. And so what we tried to do is train her that she wasn't weird, and that we wanted her to not, because the kids, she had to go get medicine every day at school. She had all these other things. So we wanted her to feel comfortable. So she got to the point where she got the kids, she would teach with her classmates, like her teacher would let them explain to them what cystic fibrosis was. So she would teach them. And there were times where they explained it to us like the CF doctors did, like she's trying to breathe through a straw. So she would take a straw and she'd let her friend, just keep your mouth closed around it. Now you try breathing. That's how my life is all the time. And so she found ways to teach and to help them, and so that no one thought of it as, oh, why is she doing that? Why is she taking pills? It took away the stigma of she's weird. She educated them. And so it was really helpful. And she had an IV pole sitting on the sidelines at a lacrosse game because she had been in the hospital, and it just didn't work. She didn't get to play. So there were just different things that we had to do. You look at that picture that came up from our family. There are things that you see in a picture, but you have no idea all the things that are going on behind to get them there. And so people may look okay, but like so many have inside things. And so that's why the compassion and the kindness and things make such a difference. A couple things we did, we talked about heaven a lot and how awesome it was going to be. We talked a lot about God's creation. Whenever I was driving, I'm like, oh my gosh, see that cloud? Oh, look at that. We looked for ways to highlight God. We also highlighted the fact God doesn't make mistakes. He creates us exactly the way He wants our kids to be. And we tried to help her to realize that, you know what? There are things that you are going through that are teaching us things also. And so, yes, you are suffering. I am also now being trained and suffering in different things. And we had to be okay with the fact, kind of like being a Christian, you're different than everybody else. You're different. You're called out. You're separate. You're not going to say, act, be. Same thing with kids that have special needs. We went through a lot of guilt. Her sister experienced a lot of guilt because she was healthy and watching her sister suffer. I didn't know that until she became a disciple. When she studied the Bible, she came and told us, I feel guilty a lot. And so that broke my heart because I didn't think about, all the things that the healthy siblings may experience. And so I felt guilty that she didn't get to do the things other kids got to do at times. Sydney felt guilty because I had to give up my career, and she was super expensive. And doggone, these kids can be expensive. And so in navigating, she knew how much time it took me. So even as an adult now, she's like, thank you for spending time like trying to get that medication covered by insurance, because she goes, I don't have that kind of patience. And so being able to figure out all those things, sometimes we kept things from Dave because he would go to fix-it mode, and she's like, I can't have Daddy trying to fix this, and being able to figure out, okay, at different times, different ones of us could handle different things. And modern medicine has really, 3 years ago, they came out with a new medication that Sydney's been on, and she hasn't been hospitalized in 3 years, which, I'm just so grateful that God has allowed us to be able to go through so much of this with her. But, she still has to do the same hours every day of treatments. She's still on all of her meds. But it does something that helps her lungs stay stronger, and we're not really sure. She could still get sick. Any sickness is enough to do her in if she were to get pneumonia. You know what I mean? Like, there are just so many things to be afraid of. But it's the coolest thing knowing that there's a heavenly perspective and keeping our minds on that.
Amen. Awesome. We're going to wrap up with just two of our favorite scriptures that have been super inspiring and encouraging to us over the years. One in Ephesians 1, it says, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. Learning to see what God sees, right? Seeing through the eyes of our heart, not through the eyes in our head, because sometimes what we physically see is pretty bad and it's pretty tough. But learning to see through the eyes of our heart, to see what God sees. And one of my favorite examples back in 2 Kings of this very thing, it says, when the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. Oh no, my lord, what shall we do? The servant asked, "Don't be afraid." The prophet answered, "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. I hope these scriptures have encouraged you. I hope our thoughts on patience and perseverance and perspective have encouraged you. And now Steve's going to come up and just briefly wrap us up with what's next.
All right, great. Thanks, Dave and Deb. It's just an amazing story to share. And you know what, guys? I know we're really running short on time here, and actually the next group's trying to get in the setup here. So I just want to go over some couple of things here. We have our contact information on this screen here, as you can see. And then also, too, we have, you can reach out on these 3 different sites. We have our Facebook Exceptional Families group. Jeff Bridges has his site there, and then Vicky has her Hearts for Kids coaching group as well. But right now, we have the breakout sessions going. It's just starting right now, going down the hall on the same level here on rooms 320, A, B, C, and D. And then we'll have, like I said, we have facilitators over there. But thank you so much for just taking your time to show here. Oh, go back. There you go. Yep. And then we'll be down the hall if you guys want to join us as well. Thank you for coming tonight or this afternoon. Thank you.